our last two videos, we have looked at estuaries in their natural form, highly productive and valuable coastal habitats. And we have seen all the negative impacts of human activity, both within the estuary and in its catchment area, resulting in heavily degraded or even completely destroyed estuaries. We have also considered the possible effects of sea level rise on estuaries. They move up, move inland, or drown. In this video, we will look at restoring and managing these important environments into the future. This should be an inclusive effort, with Mātauranga Māori and its knowledge based on centuries of observing and using estuaries, its practices and values, or tikanga, and its principle of guardianship. Combined with local community knowledge and much ongoing volunteer work, along with current scientific knowledge and research. At its core is the realisation that each estuary and its catchment need to be considered as one system, and that the quality of water entering the estuary must be improved. In other words, caring for the estuary means also caring and managing the catchment area, the source of most of what ends up in the estuary. This is supported by Maori wisdom, ki uta ki tai, from mountains to sea, all interconnected. This is finally being recognised by our law. Under current laws, estuaries are managed by coastal policy, while catchments are under freshwater policy. It is now proposed that estuary and catchment are considered as one under freshwater management. With that in mind, let's look at restoring estuaries. This can be quite complex and difficult because, of course, it will depend not only on how damaged an estuary is, but also on how modified its catchment area is. So it will involve work both within the catchment to reduce the flow of water, sediments and other pollutants, as we saw in video 10, and to manage future land use there, and work within the estuary, restoring natural vegetation, especially salt marshes, and reversing the negative impacts of human use. Again, all this work needs partnerships to succeed. Iwi and Hapu and community groups, both already leading a lot of this work, along with local and regional councils, government agencies, and conservation groups. First, let's look at action needed in catchments, the land which drains into the estuary. We know from video 10 that clearing the land of its natural vegetation for farming and urban development has greatly increased the volume of water and sediment flowing into our estuaries and introduced contaminants including nutrients, hydrocarbons, toxic chemicals and bacteria. These come from fertilisers, herbicides and livestock, and from roads, cars, housing and sewage. And we know that these all badly affect the health of estuaries. The work required in catchments to improve the water quality includes riparian or riverside planting with native vegetation and fencing, removal of hard structures and walls along waterways, resizing culverts where roads are blocking tidal movement, floodwater flow and fish passage, returning straightened rivers back to meandering watercourses to slow and absorb flow, returning very steep and unstable areas to native bush cover, discouraging use of excess fertiliser, strict control of runoff from major earthworks, upgrading urban water infrastructure, and constructing wetlands for stormwater overflow. Looking at the action needed within the estuaries, as we saw in video 10, they have been drained for farmland, infilled for developments, dredged for sand extraction, used as rubbish dumps and sewers, and lost water inflow due to river diversion, to name just a few negative impacts. If an existing estuary is damaged but still functioning, the restoration work can be relatively simple, such as planting, both on the margins of the estuary and on the banks of rivers and streams flowing in. Weed and animal control is then needed, and fencing to keep out grazing stock. Signs to educate and inform public and non-damaging access and tracks will help protect and raise awareness of the ecosystem. A more difficult restoration is where an estuary or part of an estuary has been changed by land use. In New Zealand, this is usually where estuary wetlands have been ditched and drained for farming. This type of restoration consists firstly of retreat, moving farming back to the edges of the original estuary, giving back space for the natural estuary to be restored. This may involve large areas and sometimes includes restoring river ecosystems in the surrounding catchment. Reshaping estuary margins, as well as planting, fencing, and many other efforts will follow. This will all need careful negotiations with affected landowners and appropriate compensation, and can result in very successful restorations. Where human use has consisted of infilling or reclamation of the estuary for urban needs such as roads and rails, sewage ponds and rubbish dumps, or where rivers have been diverted away from the estuary, the restoration becomes more complex and difficult. Removing structures and excess infill, and restoring water inflows from sea and river. In this case, the river, originally diverted away from the estuary, has been partially returned. Though these are very complex restorations, there have been some very successful results. Where infilling and reclamation, usually for urban development, is so extensive that it cannot be stopped or reversed, it is clearly not practical to retreat. But there is still some useful work that can be done by creating just some elements of an estuary, even though the real estuary cannot be restored. An example, replacing ugly hard walls around harbour edges with more natural sediment and estuary plantings, recreating part of a natural estuary margin in tidal flats. An interesting side note to this creation category is the growing movement of water-sensitive design in cities, introducing water features into building and landscape design. In this particular example, an urban coastal wetland has been recreated on the site of an original estuary, which was used by Maori for food gathering and waka launching, and was lost 150 years ago when the land was uplifted by earthquake. Now it improves stormwater runoff and adds to the cultural and historic values of the area, right next door to Te Papa, our national museum. Another recent approach is to use seaweed aquaculture to help reduce the impact of nutrients polluting estuaries. Sea lettuce, often present as large and destructive algal blooms, absorbs nitrogen and phosphorus as it grows. Harvesting it leaves cleaner water, and the resulting material can be processed into plant and animal feed, cosmetics, and human food. In video 10, we saw what might happen in estuaries as sea levels rise. They may move up, with increased sediment raising the estuary floor, but many may migrate inland if nearby land allows. It would therefore be wise to earmark and protect low-lying land surrounding estuaries to allow for future estuary migration. Monitoring of estuaries is important for both restoration and ongoing management, to recognise any changes and be prepared to adapt plans. This will include sampling estuary water for sediment and contaminants, using certain plants and animals such as cockles and seagrass to indicate the health of the ecosystem. These are called bioindicators. Checking sediment for rate of build-up and for number of animals in its surface layers. And checking the water quality of catchment streams and rivers. So we have seen that restoration and management of estuaries can be complex, and that deforestation and use of land in the surrounding catchment area has had a profound and lasting effect on them. We can work towards a new lease of life for our estuaries by using all our knowledge, traditional, current, and future research. An improved management approach will see both an estuary and its catchment managed together as one system. Any management agency will involve, at every level, local iwi, community groups and landowners. Each estuary is unique, and so local history and knowledge is invaluable. Management will involve giving back space for the natural estuary to function and to migrate landward if needed, restoring native vegetation and water flow, reducing pollution and excess sediment from catchments, managing human activity in the estuary, such as fishing, recreation and aquaculture, monitoring of the health of the estuary, and informing the public on restoration and on the future care of their estuary.